This question, or starts off with just a comment actually, is from a mother who has completed the ridiculously effective parenting training on realloveparents.com. She says, quote, now that we're all home together, now that we kind of have to be home together, now that the law makes us stay home together, I've decided that, well, life and learning should go on. Well, that's just brilliant. A lot of people can fill a schedule, complete a schedule, if it's given to them. Do A, B, C, D, and in these time frames. Not many people are good at creating their own schedule. In other words, self-motivated, self-driven. Mom says, I told the kids that they all have to learn something new. This isn't schoolwork. No, Mom is saying you all have to learn something new, something they choose, and spend 20 minutes a day on a project involving this new thing or subject. Then at the end of the day, they have to show all of us what they're learning and doing. Kind of a go and learn, this is my comment, go and learn, and then come back and do a show and tell, which is really cool. It incorporates learning, creativity, accountability, public speaking. Great idea. So Mom says, girl number 2, I say that because it gets really confusing to give people's names, and by the end of just one little discussion, there are 12 names, and you're going, I don't know who you're talking about. So girl number 2 in the family picked learning to draw. Girl number 1 chose scrapbooking. Boy, there's one boy, so we'll call him boy number 1, I guess. Boy chose learning to play the guitar. After several days of them working on their project, I asked my son to present what he had learned so far in the family meeting. And he played a few chords, not that well, and that wouldn't be a surprise. If he's just starting to learn to play the guitar, and he's probably learning by YouTube or some such thing, you wouldn't expect him to suddenly break into a spontaneous riff of his own. Mom continues, so I required that the next day he play a song, not just chords. And he did, kind of haltingly, Mom says, and he got his sisters to sing along with him. That was clever. I requested the same song for the next day, but this time with only him singing. And the next day he did it, but clearly a little embarrassed, as most people would be. Performing in public, speaking in public, if it's not something you do all the time, is terrifying because every eye is on you. And if you're doing live, like I'm doing here, every eye picks out every single mistake. So you get done doing it, and you see a recording later, and discovers you have spinach in your teeth. People are just terrified of being seen for their mistakes. Mom says, I don't think I've ever heard him sing. It was a revelation. For years, when he has spoken, he has often mumbled and put on a kind of voice it's not normal when he's just speaking more relaxed, kind of like a baby voice, or like maybe a pretend voice. I've seen that many, many times. And it's always a sign of fear. People don't feel confident in who they are, so they perform and use a different voice. The most common cause of stuttering is fear. Almost all altered speech, the most common cause of nervous tics. If we don't know how to deal with our stress, it's going to come out somehow. Mom continues, he doesn't feel confident in who he really is. That's what I was saying. So he hides it by mumbling. Oh, back up. That wasn't Mom, that was me. He doesn't feel confident. I do a combination as we go of, I have little notes to myself, and then I just take off on talking spontaneously, and then I come back and I sometimes can't remember what I was doing. So this child obviously is demonstrating that he lacks confidence. And as kids become confident, They lose the fake voice. They quit speaking like a child, for example. I knew a girl in high school who did baby talk all the way through high school. But then when I met her years later, it was gone. He'll lose his mumbling. He'll get his real voice back. So this business of having him sing in front of the family is really very good idea. Now Mom is speaking. So he sang along with his guitar, and it took some getting over himself to do it. And he was off key here and there, but it was endearing. Good for you. Being off key means nothing, not a thing. I mean, unless he's a professional performer in their recording, then okay, being off key is a problem. Actually, they can sometimes even fix that. But being yourself means everything. So this is a touching story of his faith and his courage. It's remarkable. Mom says, and I told him so afterward, that it was endearing. It was like I could see another piece of him, a more sincere piece, not covered up by his wanting to be cool or pretending to be something, by protecting himself. It is that what we are looking for. That's what we're looking for, she's saying. An honest showing of the self. It's what we need to do to feel truly seen and loved. Yeah, because if you're pretending to be something else, you can only feel loved like you're something else. Actually, you don't feel loved at all. You can only feel praised or powerful, but you never feel loved. And Mom said, do I pretty much have the picture? Yeah, I really do have the picture. Mom says, I said to them after my son's said all of this to the family after the son's guitar piece. I realized it more deeply by seeing him play and sing like that. Very good lesson. We all would be well served by encouraging our children to do new things. It builds their confidence. They don't have to do it for life. If you say to a child, okay, so we're going to try singing, we're going to play the guitar, we're going to learn to dance, we're going to whatever. But from doing new things, people become more creative, more confident, more brave. We need to do new things. And in fact, we learn often as much confidence from trying a new thing and failing as we do from succeeding. We succeed, we can become addicted to the praise of succeeding. If you fail, it gives you an opportunity to see that nobody died. You didn't lose who you were. And you could still be happy while you're failing. There's a real strength that comes from taking failing in your stride. And then they can become themselves instead of pretending to be something else. They only do that to protect themselves. So if they feel confident, that goes away. I talked to a mother, new subject, of a 5-year-old girl. And Mom said, for some time, I've been watching my daughter, like the kid's only 5, so she's been doing it for, I don't know, close to a year. I've been watching my daughter sit and, bite her clothing. She'll pull up a piece of her shirt or sweater or whatever, and she bites her clothes. I probably wouldn't care, but she's not just, gumming the clothing. She's biting it until there are holes now in most of her clothes. I suppose I could, and this is another illustration of what children do when they're afraid, when they don't feel confident, when they don't feel at ease in their world. They change their voice, they get tics, they bite their clothes, they whatever. So back to Mom. I suppose I could just throw away the clothes and get new ones. That would be one solution. I've explained to her that clothes cost money, like a 5-year-old would care. And she needs to not destroy things that we have to pay money for. But that just hasn't seemed to make any difference at all. And I've explained this without irritation. And Mom, I believe you because I know you. You've really changed the way you parent. So I've just taught her, back to Mom, that biting clothing is expensive and we would prefer that she didn't do it. On the surface, this is pretty good. Actually, it is a good start. First, why would a child bite clothing? We talked about that. Biting is not only kind of a nervous tic, an unconscious expression of, emotional pain, and there has been considerable tension between mom and dad in the past. But there might even be a bit of anger in here, angry vengeance. Children feel helpless when they see their parents quarrel, as this girl has seen you and your husband quarrel. Kids don't like feeling helpless, so they tend to lash out. And biting clothing feels probably safer to her than biting people, because many kids bite people in their frustration, bite their dog, cause destruction around the house. So there's probably a little just pain here and then a little anger, or maybe a lot of both. So now it's just become a habit. Now there's pain and anger, but now it's become habitual. So now she just sits and does it just to kind of comfort herself, like a child would suck her thumb. Mom has become more loving, because I know mom and I've watched her change her approach to her kids, but the habit persists. So how do you break it? People tend not to continue to do something if, one, they no longer get something from it. Because see, this girl is getting something from it. She's feeling more soothed. She's able to express her anger by biting these threads. She can feel them snap when she bites. And they tend not to continue doing something if, two, the consequences of doing it become sufficiently inconvenient, this is why we use consequences, that the child doesn't want to do the unacceptable behavior, or in this case, the habitual behavior, anymore. A kid does something because they get something from it. But if it becomes sufficiently inconvenient, like, for example, if you were to beat them every time they do it, I'm not advocating that, then that would become less convenient, and they would tend to stop that. But they would almost certainly then, because they don't feel loved, move on to some other equally unacceptable habit. So far, we have a great example with this mother, I'm talking to everybody now, of loving. The mother's not angry, frustrated. She's genuinely interested in her child, loving and teaching. This is really a good example so far. She explained that the clothes cost money, that it's something that they would prefer that she not do. So she's loving and teaching, but see, a given form of loving and teaching with any given child and any given behavior may not be effective. You may have to change the way you love or the thing that you're teaching. So this is a classic example of where you would add consequences to the loving and teaching with words precisely because loving and teaching with words isn't working. This is a great illustration. That's why we use consequences with children, not to punish them, not to hurt them, not to control them, but because loving and teaching with words ain't working. So mom is wondering, what can I do? I've tried all the loving and teaching that I know. So again, remember the purpose of consequences. It's part of loving and teaching. But consequences have to be inconvenient so that the child will not want to keep doing that behavior. They have to be immediate and teach the child that the bad, if you like, the not acceptable behavior isn't so fun after all. So I will offer one possible solution that does all of that. You sit with your daughter at age 5. She'll understand this easily if you help her on YouTube, and learn how to patch holes in clothing with needle and thread. Turns out I don't know anything about sewing. I've sewed human beings many times and as a surgeon, but I don't know anything about sewing cloth. I've never put on a button. I know, it's embarrassing. But there will be tons of examples on Pinterest, YouTube, and probably a bunch of other channels that I don't even know about. So then you watch the YouTube together, and then mom, you show your daughter how you do it, how you patch the holes in her clothing with, and you'll have fun doing it. You have to pick the right needle for the right kind of material. You have to pick the right kind of thread, depending on the material, the right color. See, I'm already a sewing expert. Then you help her do it, like she just saw you do it. Then third step, you do it first, then you help her do it. Then you require that she fix every hole she makes. She has to pick the needle, the thread, she has to do it, and then show it to you, and you say, yeah, that's fixed. And here's the rest, because every parent's going, yeah, but then she won't wear the clothing that she's had to sew, because there will be some evidence that there was a hole there. Yeah, that's the rest of it. She has to wear the clothing that she's fixed. So if she has to fix every hole and wear the clothing that she's fixed, in the beginning, she might find fixing the holes fun. But eventually, she's going to remember that every bite will be followed by lots of work, and she's going to have to wear that article of clothing. You're not going to throw it away. So it's just like teaching kids not to throw food, even at a really early age. Kids who are 11, 12 months old who throw food on the floor, you just get them down and you help them clean up the mess, and gradually they clean up all the mess, and then they discover that throwing food isn't the great fun that I thought it was. And your daughter's going to discover something else to do. Who knows? Maybe she'll become a seamstress. Maybe she'll become a fashion designer. That doesn't matter. But she'll quit biting holes in her clothing. That's a guarantee that she'll do that if you do it in a loving way and consistently and quickly. Every single hole has to be fixed by this kid. Next, new subject. A mother writes, and she says, I have worked mightily to help my daughter see that her negative attitude toward things just adds to the pain in her life. She acts angry and sulky to punish everybody else. It's like really obvious because she does it real dramatically and flamboyantly and kind of like does it at you. And you've all seen that. People do the sulking thing, but they don't sulk quietly and disappear. They sulk at you and look for your reaction. And so mom says, I've been explaining to her that it really just only hurts her, that other people are going, have your attitude. You're right. Every time she acts sulky and angry, she then, and this is obvious, she uses her own snotty attitude, her own victim-y attitude, as proof that she's being mistreated. This isn't obvious. So the reasoning, quite unconscious, goes like this. This would be the girl unconsciously thinking to herself, I'm feeling angry and victim-y. So if I'm feeling that way, somebody must have treated me badly. People do this everywhere, every day. So this is not rare. And they treat me unfairly, or I wouldn't feel like this. So my attitude is perfectly understandable. So they create the victimhood, then they justify the victimhood, which has been proven by learning theory. We tend to feel first, then we use our brains to justify the way we feel. And that's what she's doing, and she's poisoning herself. Mom says, yesterday I told my daughter that I would point out to her in an attempt to help her with this hurting herself. I would point out to her every time she had a pouty, sulky face because it adds to her unhappiness. And tonight she was wearing that face again. She was tired and had some work to do before she could go to bed, and I required her to work 20 minutes on her poster board, which is what mom calls the place where the daughter writes the things that she promised to do that day and the next days. And the daughter said, well, none of you ever heard that sound. I have so much other work to do, and I've got to catch up on blah, 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 and all the rest of it's blah, blah, blah. Just excuses why she doesn't want to go do what mom said. And mom says, I've heard this many times. Whenever she doesn't want to do what she has agreed to do, she pulls out the I'm so busy card. Yeah, of course. She uses whatever excuse she has. You'll notice she never says, oh, I'm too busy to have my favorite ice cream, if that's offered to her. No, it's always something she doesn't want to do. And mom said, I was not telling her to stop pouting. Now, for everybody, that's very important. Mom's pointing out to her daughter when she has that pouty, snotty face on because it hurts the daughter, not so that she'll stop it for the mother's benefit. So mom again says, I wasn't telling her to stop pouting, but she had told me earlier that she wanted to be happier. And she admitted that she was not happy when she was complaining and sulking and acting like a victim. So I saw the face, mom says, and I said to her, are you feeling happy now? The daughter said, no. So what are you going to do about it? Says mom. Are you feeling loved? Or are you being loving and responsible? No, the daughter says. And mom says, maybe I could have left it right like that. I kept talking a little, pointing out how fortunate she is, that she doesn't have to pay rent, she has a warm bed, all she has to be responsible for is her own studies, her college application, which is a privilege for her, and learning to make good choices and create a happy life. All for her. Pretty easy. So what is she complaining about? So that's what mom said to the daughter. Well, those are good things to teach her. Now that you've done this, now that you've told her all those things, that gratitude would be far more productive than acting like a victim and being pouty, next time I suggest that you not list all those things that she needs to be grateful for and that all she has to do is be responsible for her own self. I suggest that you require that she list the things she's grateful for. When children say a thing, they learn it so much deeper than if you say it. Have her do it right there, verbally and on the spot. You say, you've got that face, so what could you be saying instead? That's what you say. And then you just sit there and she goes, I don't know what you mean. You say, yeah, you do. And it's not enough that she just says, because many kids will do this. If you put them on the spot and you say, so what could you say and believe differently? Many kids will go, well, I'm grateful that I have a place to live, and blah, blah, blah. They don't mean it at all. They're just trying to get you to go away. No, she has to stay there until she means it. Oh, that could take a really long time. And I've seen some parents sit there with a kid for a couple of hours until the kid can mean it. By that time, they're often in tears, realizing how difficult they are being, the child is being. The idea isn't to punish them. The idea is to have them do something that will help them. Mom says, so when we talked about gratitude instead of sulking, her face sobered up. And the pouty face went away. And then later on, her brother needed some help with something on the computer, and she volunteered to help, which with that sulky face she would not have done. And then she got her own work done. And when I saw her later, she looked happier. You did the right thing. Hallelujah. The angels sing. When people act sulky with their face, with their words, they become sulkier, more like victims. And the cycle's got to be broken. And you break the cycle with the truth, with love. And this one works every time, but you got to have the truth and love first. Gratitude. Because you can't feel grateful if you don't feel loved, and you can't feel grateful if you don't see the truth. So truth, love, gratitude. That's what changes our attitude. Instead of just positive thinking, which I just hate because it's just positive lying. New subject. I couldn't possibly say this strongly enough. This subject. Look at how the world is being brought right now, as I'm speaking, virtually to its knees by a tiny virus. Tiny, a thousandth the size of a grain of rice, by a tiny virus that nobody can see. It's crushing the world. It's working on it anyway. That's one of many reasons that it spreads so successfully, that it's small. Almost to the point of, well, it is to the point of invisible unless you have an electron microscope. And that people can spread it without having obvious symptoms themselves. In short, it's sneaky. It's small, creeps up on you and can kill you, and you don't even know where it came from. It's not obvious, like people who walk around with a great big purple rash on their neck. You could know to avoid them. This is very similar to the problems that develop with our children. In children, having an attitude, a negative attitude, ungrateful, demanding, is so common that we don't notice it anymore. It's become invisible, like a virus. Each time a child huffs or puffs or stomps out of a room or uses a sarcastic tone, even just a little, that's what we've been talking about, little, whines a little, acts irritated a little, withdraws to their room, all those things are indicating unhappiness. And we have to stop everything. Don't stop the behavior. That's just an artificial solution and temporary. We have to stop everything we're doing and pay attention to what they're saying, because most of what children say is not with words. Those little behaviors and attitudes then incubate and grow always. Not all the time does coronavirus, for example, when it infects somebody, really turn into anything significant. Sometimes people remain asymptomatic through their entire infection. But these attitudes in children always grow. And that's where the really obvious behaviors come from. And then when the obvious behaviors happen, because we haven't been paying attention to the small ones, we go, well, I don't understand that. We have to address them every time. I can't count how many times parents say to me things like, my child just out of the blue suddenly had a tantrum. No. I just found out that my son just became addicted to porn. No. Suddenly it seems like my daughter is just never off her phone. Today my son just snapped at me out of the blue. All wrong. No child suddenly becomes defiant or angry or irresponsible. It doesn't happen, because happy children don't do this. They don't do those things. It happens because we ignored all the little signs. We didn't use our electron microscope and look for the virus that was growing in them. We didn't observe closely. We allowed the virus to grow. And by the time we noticed it, it was out of control with fever, coughing, pneumonia, and sometimes death. I wish I were exaggerating, but I'm not. We do not pay attention to the little things, so they get bigger, like ignoring a lit cigarette, just one, or a sparking wire in the forest in dry season, and we've seen where that goes. There's a town in California, actually I don't know that it still exists, but Paradise, pretty much the whole town just went poof from a single spark from a fallen power line. Whole towns burn and people die from one spark, one match, one cigarette. Solution? Watch your children. Just watch them. Not watch and be afraid, not control them. Be aware. Not with fear, but with discernment. Watch for every negative attitude, disrespect, defiance, failure to carry out responsibilities. Why? Because you hate their disrespect? Because you don't like those little things that happen? No. Because you need the dishes done? No. Who cares about a dish? You watch them and watch for these little behaviors and rebellions and so on for them. Because these little things grow out of control and injure them badly. They're a virus that grows rapidly and infects the whole body. These little things can even kill. I regularly get calls from parents who have older teenagers who are now unteachable, completely unteachable, or in some cases in jail or dead, because nobody paid attention to the little things. No child suddenly becomes ADHD. No child suddenly starts cutting herself. No child suddenly becomes depressed and has suicidal thoughts. There were 1,000 clues before that. Now, in our defense, as parents, we didn't know what to look for. We didn't. Nobody taught us. So we didn't know. You wouldn't know how to see a coronavirus if it was right smack in front of you because you don't know how to operate an electron microscope. Parenthetically, I don't either. We didn't know. We didn't see those things. That's why we're meeting here, is to learn to see those little things, to observe them, and to bring them up with our children like that mother did with her child's pouty face. And because she dealt with it while it was a little thing, her daughter became happier within minutes by using the truth and love and gratitude and a million other little things that we've talked about on these Facebook Lives and talk about extensively in the ridiculously effective parenting training. If she can do it, if other parents can do it, observe the little things and promote the healing while they're small, so can you. We all can. I'll see you tomorrow.